So what happens if you fail the HESI Exit Exam? Does that necessarily mean you won't be successful on the actual NCLEX? Let's talk about it. But before I get into that though, if you're not already subscribed, definitely want to go ahead and invite you to hit that subscribe button. On this channel, I talk about all things related to nursing student, and of course, nurse life. Real quick though, I want to give two quick plugs in there. One for the NCLEX Prep Academy. If you haven't already gotten an NCLEX Prep, definitely check that out at nursemoneytalk.com/NCLEX Prep. And also, if you're watching this and you've already passed the NCLEX, make sure you check out the new Nurse Academy over there at nursemoneytalk.com/New Nurse Academy. So definitely check that out. So what exactly is the HESI Exit Exam? Real quick, it's pretty much an exam that nursing students, or that nursing schools, I should say, require you to take. Some nursing programs will make passing this exam a condition of graduation. So you have to pass, get whatever certain score that they want for you on that HESI Exit Exam for you to actually pass the program. Some might not make it a requirement. And if you're watching this and you're about to get into nursing school, or your nursing school hasn't really even talked about it, your program might not even use the HESI exam. There's other ones out there. So for instance, my program used what was that? I think it was like the ATI predictor exam. To me, like, they all essentially do the exact same thing. One, they're expensive and you're paying for it. The program's probably requiring you to get it, and the programs may or may not make it a condition of graduation. And the goal of those predictor exams, as I'm calling it, is essentially to gauge how well you're going to do on the actual NCLEX. In a perfect world, you prepare for those exams, and so you prepare really hard, you pass those exams, and then that'll mean that you're going to be successful on the NCLEX. And typically, those exams, they might give you a couple of times to actually pass it, just kind of depending on your program. That's in a perfect world situation. What ends up happening is it is very possible to not do well on those predictor exams and actually end up doing well on the NCLEX. Now, as for what happens if you fail, I mean, I think now, okay, so before I get into that, if it's a condition of you passing your program, then it's pretty clear that's a problem. You're gonna have to do do what you can to pass it, because you have to pass it as a condition of passing your program. Now, if it's not, what happens if you don't pass a program like that? I remember thinking to myself, like, I didn't put too much stock into the predictor exam, and I ended up doing just fine. Like, if you look at forums and talk to people or whatever out there, you'll find a list of people who ended up not doing well, or didn't pass the exam, or the exam said that they weren't going to be successful and they ended up passing. I think it's important not to focus too much specifically on those exams, and more or less focus on what are the problem areas that you are struggling on those exams. So for instance, I think, to me, like, a lot of those exams are written harder than the actual NCLEX, I think. And if you think about it, it would kind of make sense, because if it's a harder exam and you can pass and do well, you're probably going to, it would stand to reason that you're probably going to do better on a slightly easier exam. The other thing to keep in mind is that while those exams are trying to predict how well you'll do on the NCLEX, at the end of the day, they're not the NCLEX. And some predictor exams are better than others, not saying necessarily, specifically on on, you know, the HESI exam or the ATI or whatever else is out there. I'm just speaking just in general. And so I would just focus on the problem areas, because I think they'll typically give you like a list of like, or areas where you need to focus on. So I'd probably do that. So focus on problem areas. The other things, I think a lot of times they're written harder than the others. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that, you know, a lot of y'all, by the time you're taking this, you haven't actually gotten a good NCLEX prep. And while I think nursing school is good at preparing you, ideally, for what it's like to be out in the, you know, what it's like to be out in the real world, if you will, I don't think that's necessarily the same thing as preparing you to pass a standardized exam. And so I think for a lot of you, once you go out there and once you buy a good NCLEX prep and you actually, you know, you're done with school and you're focused, you're laser targeted, and you know, you're doing however many weeks to prepare for the exam, I think a lot of you will end up being successful, being successful on it. Not saying that there's not any merit on it, on the predictor exams. I haven't seen, you know, statistics on there, and I'm sure somebody could probably find one out there. You know, I'm just saying, just in general, like, there's already a lot of things that as a student is going to stress you the heck out. What I'm hoping by this video is to encourage you that even if you take one of those predictor exams and it looks like it is the end of the world, you know, it's probably not the end of the world, and there's still plenty of opportunities, a lot of other things you can do to actually, you know, get yourself ready and to prepare you to pass the actual licensing board.